Right now, new customers on FanDuel get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. So even as the weather gets colder, the NFL offers at FanDuel stay red hot. That's $150 if your team wins any $5 moneyline bet. Right now is the perfect time to join FanDuel because the app is simple to use, and there's no better time to get it on the action. They have spreads, player props, over-unders, and much, much more. So visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL, an official partner of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And with that, let's welcome in Travis Rodgers of the Locked On Rams podcast, who is getting ready for this game against the Browns. Travis, thanks for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Travis. And let's start. We were just talking about those two late draft picks, Puka Nacua and Kyren Williams. It still pains me. I have a keeper fantasy football league that I had to trade Kyren Williams because I needed a second. It's a 2-quarterback league. My Kirk Cousins got hurt. I had no choice. It literally pained me to trade him, but I did it anyway. And then, of course, he had that monster game last week. But he's been phenomenal. Nakua's been phenomenal. Did you see either of these things coming when the season started? Because most fans outside of Rams fans probably never heard of either of these guys before the season.
Well, I'll go back to this. I go back to when Cooper Kupp first showed up a million years ago, right? And Sean McVay said from almost the first day of camp, like, no, this guy's different. You don't understand. This is not an Eastern Washington third-round pick that we're going to develop into an NFL player. He's ready to go right now. And everybody kind of like, yeah, sure, great. Sure he is. He was right. He doesn't say it very often. He did say it about Nacua. He did say it about Kyren Williams. So when Sean McVay says, no, this guy has a little something special, that there's usually one thing in these guys' profile that doesn't add up to a first or a second round grade. In Puka's case, it's not that high-end speed. So he's going to drop down a little bit. And that's where the Rams have thrived with both him and Williams, that if Sean McVay says they're going to be pretty good players, they're going to be pretty good players because he doesn't say it about every guy that they pick. He picks and chooses who he says that about, and he said it about both of those guys.
You know, Travis, from an outside standpoint, I always was curious. You know, you're a Rams guy. When you look at the Cleveland Browns offense, is there anything that really, scares you? What bothers you about the Browns offense?
That the Rams defense can sometimes make average quarterbacks look pretty good. That's the part. It's not like one guy. It's not like, I know Deshaun Watson's out, but okay, you're worried about Amari Cooper, you're worried about him. It's just that sometimes the Rams, they made Kenny Pickett look good for a few minutes. And it's just little pockets here and there where guys that maybe aren't super high-end guys play like super high-end guys. So I don't know if there's one player in particular. The Rams defense is kind of a no-name defense outside of the one big name in Aaron Donald. They've been a lot better the last 2 weeks, but those are division matchups that always kind of get a little bit tighter. They beat the Arizona Cardinals like a drum every time they play them. So I'm optimistic about where the Rams are, but I'm going to need to see it against somebody that's not an NFC West team, that's not the Cardinals, who they always kill, not the Eagles, who they match up pretty well against. So I do think that defense is still a question mark, even though it's been a little bit better of late.
Travis, how are the two guys, two of our old buddies? We sent JJ3 back to the Rams, and then the other nickel corner, who do we have?
Ty Hill, right?
Ty Hill.
No. George Hill.
No, it's Ty.
Ty Hill.
Ty Hill. I got to write the
George Hill's a basketball player.
Yeah. How are those guys doing out there? Have they rebounded and have they made an impact for the Rams defense this year?
Well, I think John Johnson is the one that has made the most impact, and it's fairly minimal. He doesn't play a ton. I think it was more of a familiar face in the locker room that they were looking for. Like I mentioned a minute ago, this is a defense that a year ago had Jalen Ramsey, had Bobby Wagner, had A'Shaun Robinson, had a guy like Greg Gaines, had all of these different players that, were brand names in the NFL to go along with Aaron Donald. Well, this year, Aaron Donald's the only one that's there. So I think they wanted to bring back a veteran guy that knew the system, that knows the organization. So that's why John Johnson was brought back. He hasn't had a huge impact on the team. They've played a lot of younger players. Jordan Fuller finally had a pretty nice game for the Rams for the first time in a while last week against Arizona. So those two guys, Hill isn't really a factor at all. But you look at Johnson, it's more of a veteran presence than anything he's bringing to the field on any given Sunday.
Travis, it's always fun to watch the home crowd for the LA teams. And
Maybe
I'm curious. I'm curious. Yeah. We know that the Browns have backers in every major city. They're a well-followed team. What do you think the crowd's going to be like Sunday? What will the split be like?
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of orange, right? And this is just life in Los Angeles. Whether it's the Chargers or whether it's the Rams, the opposing team's fans fill up SoFi Stadium, and especially when it's a team that doesn't come through a whole lot. When it's the Seahawks or somebody that's in the division that comes through, it's kind of found its own level. But when it's somebody from outside the market, especially a big city like Cleveland, like you mentioned, that has a lot of fans, I would bet, if I had to put a bet, I'll say 70-30 orange to blue.
Wow.
And I'll be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if that's low. Because when we've seen teams like the Bills, like the Steelers, like these teams that don't come in a lot, it's lopsided. The Cowboys come in regularly, and they still fill it up about 60-70%. So I expect the same from the Browns fans.
Wow.
Matthew Stafford, obviously, we know what he did for L.A., goes and wins a championship, and once that happens, it's worth it. But where is he now? I called him mediocre at this point in his career. Is that fair? Is he a little better than that? What do you say?
I think he's a lot better than that.
Okay.
I think that he's the reason they're in the position that they're in. If you told me at the beginning of the season that the Rams would play their first game in December and have their own playoff future in their own hand, I would have thought you're nuts.
Wow.
And here's where it is. That they have a chance to go to the playoffs if they take care of business against the teams they want to do. Statistically, it's not great. But the eye test, the only time they're in games is when he's cranking. When he's good, they win. When he's good, they're in it. If he has one of his games where, maybe he throws a couple interceptions, or usually it's more a function of an offensive line that can't give him any time, or Kyron Williams being out and they don't have any sort of running game to speak of. But when he's good and he has just this much time, he's still, I think, as good as just about anybody that's not a Mahomes or a Jackson or an Allen or something like that. I think he's at the top of that next tier of quarterbacks. When he's good, the Rams always have a chance. The numbers won't show it to you, but the eye test will.
Travis, I think it was last season, it was like a bunch of people that was flirting retirement. Aaron Donald, even Sean McVay. Do you think that this could be like the last hoorah with them? How long do you think that these guys continue to play? Matt Stafford, Sean McVay, Aaron Donald. How long do you think that these guys stay with the Rams?
I think the clock's ticking. And I don't know if it's at the end of this year. I don't know if it's at the end of next year. I think the fact that they're competitive again, and I heard you guys talking before I came on, the Rams have a full complement of draft picks for the first time since Jared Goff in 2016. They have a first-round pick. They have money to spend.
Wow.
So they haven't picked in the first round since Jared Goff.
7 years in a row.
They're going to be better next year. They're already a little ahead of schedule. Aaron Donald is still playing at a high level. Matthew Stafford, like we just talked about, I think is still a highly functioning NFL quarterback. They don't have their replacement on the roster. I think the one name that we've heard a lot about that was a part of the big star package with the Rams that maybe isn't anymore is Cooper Kupp. I don't know if Puka Nacua kind of slides into that role moving forward, but I don't think I don't think that McVay is going anywhere anytime soon. I think if that was going to happen, it would have happened already. He's still a young guy. He loves coaching football. I think that this was supposed to be the second year in a kind of let's get this thing together, and I think they kind of juiced it a little bit. I think they're going to be good again next year. I don't think any of those guys are going to leave anytime soon.
Yeah, it really does, Travis, feel like they've survived what is supposed to be the low end of the talent cycle. Typically the way the draft is set up and everything else, teams are supposed to be good, and then they're supposed to be bad, and it's supposed to wash, rinse, repeat. But they spent an inordinately small amount of time at the bottom of that talent cycle. I want to touch on something that you said earlier, because it's kind of been a running theme for our show really this season. You said if you look at the numbers, Stafford isn't great, but the eye test tells you he is. We said the same thing last week when the Browns lost to Russ. He threw for 135 yards. They were critical yards. Do you feel that there's a transition underway in the league from what just 3 or 4 years ago was a throw it all over the stadium league, and those passing offenses were clearly the upper echelon? It feels to us like the defense has circled the wagons and it's becoming more of a defensive league. Do you concur?
It's funny. So I'll go back a few weeks ago. It was the 5th anniversary of that Chiefs-Rams Monday night game where the final score is 54-51.
That might have been the apex of it.
Right. Right, I agree, and it was one of those. Okay, Sean McVay broke the NFL. He's going to score 50 points every single week. There's no one's ever going to be able to. Well, that obviously didn't happen, and I think you're right. I think we're back in that cycle of the guys on the other side of the ball get paid too. Those defensive coordinators, they get paid too, and they'll sit in that room with their little laser and figure out what's going on at some point. And okay, if we do this and put this guy here, and I think we're just kind of coming back through it again. I think that when the next guy or the next idea comes through, it'll start to change back the other way. But right now it's more of make a play here or there. Don't turn the ball over. The days of, 40 points a game, that season with the Rams, they only scored fewer than 30 points twice that whole year. And now they've gone over 30 once this whole year. So it's a talent issue. It's a cycle issue, but I agree with you. I think it's swung back the other way.
Mike?
Travis, we marvel at what Myles Garrett does on a weekly basis here in Cleveland. Some of the stuff he does, we come in and we say we've never seen it before, and he gets sacks, and he hasn't won Defensive Player of the Year yet, but he's in the conversation. You get to watch Aaron Donald do something similar in L.A., and you've done so for a while. Is it possible to put into context or words just how good Aaron Donald has been and is still playing at this point of his career?
I'll put it to you like this. Aaron Donald has two 330-pound guys trying to prevent him where he wants to go, and they fail every time. Every single time. That if he wants to go where he wants to go, there is no game plan with him with one person. There's rarely a game plan with him with two. And because the Rams are still kind of looking for that next guy, Byron Young's kind of started to develop into that guy. Oftentimes he's dealing with triple teams, and he still frequently makes plays. I think you're right. I think you guys getting to see Myles Garrett gives you an idea of what an unstoppable defensive force looks like. And the Rams have had one for the better part of 10 years. And the way that he got started this year, I'm like, is this the first time that Aaron Donald maybe isn't quite that guy? Nope. He's still Donald, and he's still doing it. And it's been a real pleasure to get to watch him for as long as we have.
He got TLTFL.
He's the second highest graded D tackle according to PFF still.
Who's first?
Just giving numbers. Dexter Lawrence of the Giants.
Oh, okay. For us, we've talked about it here. Sometimes I kind of compared it to defensive linemen. On the other hand, we talk about whether Zadarius Smith has had a down year, whether he's been disappointing. I say, sometimes you get this thing where defensive linemen, you're trying to develop other guys to be a running mate, and it just seems like they're just looking at Myles Garrett and being like, oh, yeah, he's pretty good, or Aaron Donald. And I would even say it's more impressive. I always give the nod to a defensive tackle who's that dominant because it is just that more difficult to get. You're in the phone booth, and the way he's able to get to the quarterback, it's amazing. It's just to me, he's the best defensive tackle ever. He may be the best defensive lineman ever.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll go a step further. I think if you're just talking about the best defensive players of all time, I think he's on the short list. You're talking Reggie White, you're talking Lawrence Taylor, maybe Ronnie Lott, but I think Aaron Donald fits on that list. I don't think that he's out of place with those guys at all, and he's still doing it. This is a guy that's been here for a while, and it's still a guy that every time the offense breaks the huddle, they're looking for number 99. Where is he? How are we going to try to slow him down? And most of the time, they still can't do it. He's once in a generation. He's been the best player on this team from the moment they showed up in L.A. He probably still is, and probably still will be for a couple more seasons.
Travis, give us your game plan right now. If you are Sean McVay, how are you attacking the Browns' defense?
Kyren Williams. Just keep doing it. Get the ball to Puka when you need to do it. Get the ball to Kupp. Kupp has not been particularly good for them over the last 5 weeks. His high catch mark over the last 5 weeks is just 4 receptions. He's been very, very average so far this year. He had a couple of good games when he came back after missing the first 4. He really hasn't been very good beyond that. Williams is kind of the guy that makes it go. I'm not comparing him to Todd Gurley because Gurley did it for a long time at a high level, but the last couple of games where he's been available, it's been Gurley-like, and the best version of that Rams offense is when they can run it and they can throw it to the running back out of the backfield, and Williams is that guy. So I expect to see a ton of him on Sunday.
What's your prediction for the game there, Travis?
I think the Rams have not really scored a ton of points most of the games this season. Like I mentioned, they've only been over 30 once all year long. That was last week against Arizona. I think it's probably played in the high teens, low 20s. The Rams have to have this game if they're going to make a playoff push. This is, they're not going to beat Baltimore next week. They're probably not going to beat San Francisco in Week 18 up in San Francisco. So that means they need to win the remainder of the games that they have left on their schedule. And this is one that they have to have. I think they know that. I think they come out with everything they got, and I think they win a low-scoring, close game.
All right. Very
Thanks,
good.
Travis.
Travis Rodgers, you are very good at your job. Just excellent information. And you handled it all very, very well done. So we appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you.